Coming up on Locked On Brewers, Mailbag Monday. Love the interaction, some great questions. We're going to be talking about the lockout, what players do during a lockout, what the lockout is all about, the main points of contention between the two sides. And last, there's an interesting name that's attached to the Brewers this season and this offseason. Stay tuned to find out who.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back, all you cheesers, to Locked On Brewers, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, talking about your favorite teams every day. I am Vinny Rottino, and you can follow me on Twitter at Vinny Rottino, and also check me out on the pre- and post-game show during the season for Bally Sports Wisconsin. And joining me again today is Dom, the Domtron. I just made that up, Dom Catronio. Dom Catronio, and you can follow him at Dom_Catronio. And also make sure you follow at Locked On Brewers on Twitter and subscribe to the Locked On Brewers podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks for making Locked On Brewers your first listen every day. We post episodes daily, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and we are free and available on all platforms. So coming to you plausibly live from my basement, deep in Cheeseland, Dom, you and Brian Anderson came over and made this situation, and it's amazing. Thank you again. If you haven't seen this situation, you got to come on to YouTube and check out the podcast on YouTube and see what they did. Even though I did mess up the camera already, you can see that my paint cans and things are behind me. It was supposed to not look like that. Dom's just shaking his head.
It's a good touch. It's okay. You're a working man. You're a family man. You know, not all of us can have a full-fledged studio in our basement. You know, I mean, I don't even have a basement. I'm in a spare room in my apartment. So
no, I really do appreciate it. But soon enough, Dom. And if you ever do need to buy a home, you know who to go to. I'm going to plug Maggie again, Maggie Realtor. Check her out on Instagram as well. Give her a follow. But
yeah, we have a great conversation coming out tomorrow with Tim Dillard, and you were trying to sell Maggie's services to him since he was sleeping on couches all summer. But that's a fun conversation for tomorrow.
It is. That was great having Tim on. You guys make sure you tune in tomorrow for that conversation with Dim Tillard, or also known as Tim Dillard. But that was a lot of fun today recording that. But look, jumping right into this, we have some really good questions. And honestly, forgive me, guys, if I end up missing a question or two. I am new to Twitter relatively. I mean, it's been 8 months. I still don't really know how to use it, but Dom's coaching me through it a little bit. So, but I'm pretty sure that I got all the questions answered. The first one is coming from Nick Gagas, friend of show, big-time follower, long-time follower, and he does ask, with the lockout happening as we speak, what are some things that the players can do to keep on track for the season or from the season? And then also, are they not allowed in the stadium during the game or during this time? I mean, and really good question. And what happens is during a lockout, the players and the front office and the coaching staff and everything, they're completely separate. In fact, everyone on the owner's side of things, the team employee side of things are kind of told not to talk to the media. If you notice on MLB.com for the Brewers and all the different team sites, they're kind of blank, right? I mean, they're it's benign, it's neutral, kind of going into past games and past news and notes and things like that. It's really not doing anything whatsoever in terms of reporting on the team, and the team and the players are kind of just like it says, they're locked out from playing or practicing at any of the facilities, kind of entering any of the facilities. So that is what's going on right now. And there's another, and I was going to touch on what are they doing at this time, but I wanted to get Dom's take if you have any other insights on what this means for players in terms of being quote unquote locked out.
Well, I mean, just take the literal definition of the word lockout. You know, anything team operated, team owned, team employed, it's a no-go if you're a player. So there's a full firm line between players association and ownership groups. And, if let's just use a hypothetical of, let's say, Christian Yelich wanted to go work out in Phoenix at the spring training complex at the American Family Field complex down in Maryville, he can't. It's
Right.
it's locked out. He can't go there. Or furthermore, this is where it kind of really stinks for players. A guy like somebody injured right now. When John Axford came back and he got hurt, and we saw him in a brace at the end of the season, so he's presumably going under rehab right now. He can't have access to an Brewers trainer because he's locked out. There's no communication at all allowed between players and ownership group, as in general managers, as in owner, as in manager, even as well. So everyone is completely blocked out from each other, and there is no communication allowed until there is a new CBA in place, which probably won't even start negotiations again until after the new year.
Yeah, that's I never even thought about the injured player situation, and that one is a little bit, disturbing almost, right? I mean, these guys do need to rehab what's going on with their bodies. And just to kind of reintroduce or talk about just in terms of the definition of what is going on. This is Major League 40-man Major League Players Union players. That's 40-man roster players versus the rest of the organization, the ownership. Minor league players are not affected by this. So there is minor league players that are rehabbing. There is minor league players that are at the facility working out and making sure their game stays sharp. Just wanted to kind of let everybody know
and to
that
follow
as
up
well.
on that too, there are minor leaguers on the 40-man roster, obviously. And if for some reason the season starts late, minor league season will not be affected in any way. If the major league season is starting late, minor leaguers can still play as scheduled on time, and 40-man roster players can play in the minor leagues because they have not debuted in the major leagues yet. It is against the rules, though, to be optioned to the minor leagues during a lockout. So there wouldn't be any concerns about things like options or things like that. But I think that was a really interesting wrinkle. There's amazing pieces by Jeff Passan, Evan Drellick, Ken Rosenthal. Everyone's on it between ESPN Plus and The Athletic, pay for your journalism. And everyone's really on top of it. And it was really, really helpful to just really get – they were all over it. And Evan Drellick seemed to be the Mr. Business of Baseball guy to go to in The Athletic. He's put some great stuff together and makes it really, really easy to understand of what you can and what you can't do.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. Dom's on top of it for sure, but definitely go check out those pieces from those guys that he mentioned. And just real quick, what do guys do when they are locked out? They try and work out. They try and work out at home if there's a facility, if there's an indoor facility, if they're in a cold weather spot, they try and work out. If they are down in Arizona and they thought that they were going to have access to the facility, they will try and find a different facility and work out. And they're just trying to stay in shape, do what they're going to do in the off season. But definitely they are locked out. And I will say that there are a number of Dominican League and Venezuelan League players that are actually playing this year. And right now, usually and typically, they wouldn't start playing until after the holidays. The big name guys, they are now playing. A lot of these bigger name players, bigger name major league players are playing in the Dominican Winter League and the Venezuelan Winter League just to stay in shape, just to keep their game sharp because they don't know how long this is going to happen.
Right. I mean, you think of Aaron Hicks as a great example. Aaron Hicks missed the entire second half of the season with injury. He's trying to get ABs back since he's figuring to be a major part of the Yankees next year. And you look at Albert Pujols is halfway auditioning right now.
Right.
He is a free agent. He's allowed to go to the winter leagues and play down there. And there's relievers that are pitching, and it's pretty interesting to see the involvement down there in the Dominican. And another wrinkle too is visa issues for players.
Yeah.
Which is usually run by the teams. There's so many layers to this. It's really kind of fascinating what the rest of this lockout is going to look like as we get closer to spring training. If there are impending delays, it seems there's a little bit of optimism, but if pitchers and catchers report late, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. But it definitely is concerning on my end. I'm a little bit more pessimistic. I don't know why, but I hope I'm wrong. But
upside down, everything. Man. Come on, baseball's coming.
I know. I'm an optimist overall in life, but I'm a little bit scared about the possibility of there being some delays in the season. But we do have to take a quick break here. We have to talk about DirecTV. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching your sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friends log in for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and all your shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of all the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more about directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible with all your device. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. So another question here, Dom, getting back into these mailbag questions by Michael Garfoot, another friend of show. He asks a fun one. In a bizarro world, which player from each of the other two pro Wisconsin teams would you put on the Brewers? Also, which Brewer would you think would be the best of the Packers and Bucks and why? So this is a fun question. Dom, I'm going to let you take this one right off the bat.
So the obvious answer, and this is automatically invalid in my opinion, is saying Pat Connaughton to play on the Brewers. That's automatically invalid. If you don't know, Pat pitched for one season in the Orioles organization in 2014. He pitched at Notre Dame, ultimately decided on basketball. He's a very talented athlete, but Pat's ineligible for this conversation. I tell you what, man, I was just thinking about this today that if you put A.J. Dillon at like first base or third base, that huge man and so quick, like imagine the range he could have for being that big at third base. I could see him handling a shift really well at first base with an overshift, you know. I really like the thought of A.J. Dillon at first base for some reason. That's just the first one that popped in my mind. And to flip it, as far as a Brewer on the Bucks or on the Packers, what if I told you there is a current player on the Brewers that was an all-CIF running back in the day in California? Can you guess who that is?
I have no idea.
Tyrone Taylor. Tyrone Taylor was a stud at Torrance High School growing up. In his senior year, he was a free safety and a running back, and he led the team in tackles as a free safety. And, oh, by the way, he scored like 20 rushing touchdowns. He had 3 picks. He had an incredible year. He was an all-CIF selection, but obviously ultimately chose baseball.
That's interesting. No, that is really
Tyrone would be my pick there.
I like those picks right there. Look, I am going to take, and this is gonna kind of not a little bit outside the box, but I like Jrue Holiday playing third base for the Brewers. Okay, and this is why, because even though he's one of the smallest players on an NBA basketball court, he would be one of the biggest players in the major leagues, right? I mean, he's 6'4", right? I mean, he's long, he's lanky. I mean, it's a little bit looking like Chris Bryant. I mean, he's built as well too, right? So I mean, this guy. You put him, get him in the cage. We'll get him in the cage for, maybe keep him in the minor leagues for about, I don't know, 5-6 years, something like that before he can join the Brewers team just because, yeah, I mean, the timing of it. I mean, all these guys, if you saw Michael Jordan, the best athlete ever to put on strap it on, lace him up, whatever, and this is the best athlete ever, and, he really struggled in Double-A. So, I mean, that's how hard baseball is. But yeah, I would say Jrue Holiday, because he's also an exceptional athlete. What Brewer do I think would be the best Packer or Buck? I'm going to say another easy answer would be Rowdy Tellez, right? To play tight end, for the Packers, but I'm going to go ahead and say Lorenzo Cain. That's another obvious one. I mean, I think he could play slot receiver, no problem. The guy can absolutely fly. I saw this guy when he was 20 years old run a 6'3", 60-yard dash. Now, that's ridiculously fast. It was an instructional league. I mean, this guy, back in his day, I know he slowed down just a tick, but he could have definitely returned punts in the NFL with how fast he was, for sure. So, good question there. Fun question. I did want to get to another one here. Another question from another friend of show, Ben Bromley. He asks, MLB contracts are largely guaranteed, but how might the lockout affect players' salaries? So this is another kind of, good question just because of the fact that it kind of describes what's going on here and kind of defines what is going on here in the lockout. They get zero, right? Players get $0. They are not paid by the teams because they are locked out. They are not being employed at this time. There's no contract, right? So the reason why there is a lockout or there might be a strike at some point is because there's no contract agreed upon as to what the rules of the game are going to be. And that's essentially what is going on. The economic rules, the rules of how the game is played on the field as well. So that's what's going on. Because of the lockout, there is $0 being paid out. Now, I will say this real quick before I get Dom's take and Dom's answer, or his little nugget, additional nugget that are always interesting. The idea here is that the players' union has stored up a bunch of cash for the players to pay them if there is a stoppage in work that leads into the season, because essentially players are not paid in the off season. They're only paid during the season. They're, just to kind of use round numbers, if a player is getting paid $12 million, obviously that's a lot of money. They are going to get basically 12 paychecks. They're paid every 2 weeks, and they're going to get $1 million every paycheck. Okay, so that will not happen if there is a lockout. And what happens is the players union stored away some cash from the basically the jersey sales, the video game sales.
Yep.
Yeah, the licensing money, right? They store that money away and then they pay players out so that they can, eat. I guess that's kind of
well. And a nugget off of that is the fact that players can decline it. They don't, it's not like Christian Yelich is going to be asking, "Hey, can you get me 10 grand for like?" That doesn't happen. One of the main points of contention for the Players Association during this lockout is that it takes too long for the average player to hit their payday. As in, most players, are exploited. And this isn't the case for every player, but a lot of players are exploited for their service time. Chris Bryant is the most famous example, to get an extra year of control to avoid another year of arbitration, which means they can pay you league minimum for one extra year, paying $550,000, which is what it was last season. So if you're a rebuilding team like the Pirates or the Orioles or the Rangers, and prior to what's projected for 2022, your payroll is tiny, you're not owed money because you're paying all these guys minimum salaries. Those are the kind of guys that would be offered assistance because they're cup of coffee guys, or they're just made their debut, maybe didn't have a huge signing bonus, things like that. That's why something like that exists. And one thing to make sure to recognize, and this is the owner's point of contention, is that the Players Association and the Players Union is the strongest union in North American sports. It's not even close as far as professional athletes go. The fact that their contracts are guaranteed. So the owner's point of contention is saying you're the only sport that gets 100% guaranteed contract base. And we have this system in place, and the argument is, well, why do you want more? And that's, this is where labor laws come in, and much smarter lawyers than me are going to come in and make the case for both sides and make it sound a little more compelling than that. But that's a very, very broad stroke, really like a chisel Sharpie and a fine print type portrait of what's going on in these negotiations.
Super complicated for sure. And we are going to get to some of the more specifics of what I can understand and what maybe Dom can understand in this last question. But before we do that, take a couple breaks here. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. It's Built Bar, filled with so much holiday goodness, rich and decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in carbs, calories, and fat, high in protein. You'll get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. There's so many flavors, you'll have a hard time choosing. Will it be raspberry or mint, brownie, cherry, or double chocolate, cookies and cream, or peanut butter brownie? Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down those mall doors and battle all the holiday shoppers. Or if you're just standing in the endless shopping lines, Built Bar can give you that extra something to keep you going. So throw one into your jacket or purse. You never know when you're going to need it. BetOnline has you covered all season, more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As the football season continues the march to the playoffs, BetOnline remains your number one spot for all your sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So we did want to get into one more question that gets into a little bit more of the specifics of the lockout of what I can understand. Dom, I'd love to get your take on a couple of the specifics as well. In that question, and then we are going to get into that player that was linked to the Brewers on MLB trade rumors. That is a very interesting name that the Brewers perhaps are going to add. Usually the MLB trade rumors is pretty accurate in terms of what kind of conversations were had between teams. But the question does come from, let me get to it. Sorry about that. Comes from Ralph Schultes. What are some of the positions of both the MLB and MLBPA? The DH shifting and more money. Okay, so I did just want to touch on this fact real quick. So Ralph talks about the DH and whether or not you're going to eliminate the shift and stuff like this. I don't think that these are the main points of contention for the players and the owners. And again, I think Dom can comment a little bit more on this as he dove deep into some of the pieces that were written by these experts of what's going on in this lockout. But the DH, the shift, I don't see like huge points of contention here. I think the players want a good product. I think the players and the owners both want a good product that the fans are going to get excited about, and maybe even speed up the game and maybe add more balls in play, encourage more athleticism. These are the things that I would like to see personally. I just get the feel that both the players and the owners also want to do that as well.
Well, one of the things with the DH is the fact that, you know, the owners, they feel it as a point of victory for them, saying, look, it's another guy that we can pay and our pitchers are going to stay healthier and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's surprising to know that the Players Association is saying, well, you're taking a job away from all the guys on the bench in the National League that make a living of coming in on double switches. So I just thought that was really fascinating that there's a little more contention there than maybe somebody would imagine.
Yeah, that is interesting. I never even thought about that. I will say this, though. That the main points of contention of what I am hearing and what I am reading is basically service time. When a player hits free agency, the owners, I'll just give one example of the main positions, okay? And I'll give both sides and my take on this. The owners want free agency to start at age 29 and a half. Okay, so it doesn't matter. The owners are saying that will take off the plate, take out of the conversation the idea that you just mentioned, Dom, of manipulating service time, keeping a player down in the minor leagues as long as possible, right? Because at age 18, if a guy's ready for the big leagues, he's going to be a big leaguer. And for the next 11 and a half years, if free agency isn't till 29 and a half, a player will be property of that team. The Players Union is saying absolutely not, right? The Players Union is trying to get the highest dollar amount for the highest paid players. That is their position. They want the highest amount of money for the best players. Why? When you raise up the salaries for the best players, everybody else's salary comes with it. And so that is where you see, you know, a lot of players being like, well, I want to stay in Milwaukee, or I want to stay in wherever in Cleveland. The Players Union actually promotes and kind of influences those players to kind of move on, believe it or not, to a place where they're going to get paid more. And that, what that does is again, it raises everybody else's salaries. So that's the main point of contention between players and owners, is what I'm feeling and reading. And Dom, let me get your take on this. But that is, so the 29 and a half year age is where owners want to stay when you're going to become a free agent. The players actually want players to become free agents after like 4 or 5 years, I believe is the number that I'm reading. But
right, they want
Dom,
to change the whole arbitration process. They want to change how soon you can get the free agent, because that's when most guys get paid. You look at right now, you've got multiple ways to reach arbitration as far as your service time, when you debut, the manipulation of, you know, you get an extra year if you debut after the set date. We saw it this year with Jared Kelenic. We've seen in the past with Chris Bryant, things like that.
Right.
Players want to make sure that's completely gone,
Right.
for whatever system is put into place. 29.5 doesn't work because, let's be honest, there are a lot of players that never make it to the big leagues at 29.5, or they make it to the big leagues and then they're gone before they're 29.5. It's a really hard job to stick into.
Yeah.
And that's not going to stick around, I wouldn't think. And the point of contention is it's all about service time and pay, and also the sharing of the wealth as far as what the CBA will be doing. In that, it seems, as this is the player's point, that when the owners and when the media rights deals and when the playoff shares get bigger and bigger and bigger for the owner side of things, yes, playoff shares were at a record high this past year, but the point is the rest of everything else isn't going up. The salaries aren't going up. The the benefits for the players are still the same as they were. You got to reach 10 years of service time to reach a lifelong pension and things like that. The security of the job is what the players are trying to contend. But then you look at the owners, like, you have the best job security in America because you have a guaranteed contract. So it's really amazing how this works back and forth. Those are really, really interesting labor laws. What I would really, really want to see moving forward is the fact that we don't exploit young players, and we don't see teams trying to say, well, we got to take care of these guys as long as we can while we can afford them, right? I hate hearing that phrase. I understand market capabilities and owners are strained, and look, they're spending money too. They're not just spending money on teams and coaches. They're spending money on the ballparks, spending money on other things. I'm not just trying to, walk with one foot down either aisle. I'm just trying to make sure that both people see what's going on in these negotiations, in saying that, if Carlos Correa is going to get $400 million this year, good for Carlos Correa, but 29 other shortstops, well, granted, Seager just signed for 325, but, most other shortstops are not going to make more than, not going to make $400 million. And the Players Union is fighting for those guys to be raised up and make more money than $550,000 minimums, and then be exploited for 3 years and then be cut, to the wolves and never make it out of AAA again. It's really, really, really unfair system for a young player that is just trying to make a living. And then come arbitration time, it really gets kind of ugly. Granted, Brewers won't really be going through any arbitration, I'm pretty sure, this season. And it's a very complicated labor process that most other sports don't really deal with. Yeah. So I'd really like to see it updated and understood better.
It is super complicated. At the end of the day, this is what I'll say. I want to see a fair deal on both sides. I think everybody does, to be honest. It's a concern, and it's concerning for me that there really hasn't been much movement on either side from what I'm reading.
Worried about that. I'm not worried about that at all. It's been 10 days. I'd rather have a lockout in December and then say, hey, let's regroup, let's take a breather, and then get back, right?
I agree. I agree with that. But at the same time, they are very, very far apart on some of these issues, and you would like to see at least some sort of, at least a conversation. That I don't think there's been a conversation. I think the first conversation lasted like 6 minutes or something. So we'll see. Obviously, we just don't want a work stoppage, obviously, going into the season. The last thing we'll talk about is MLB trade rumors connected a very interesting name to the Brewers, saying that the Brewers had a lot of interest in this guy. They speculated this before Rowdy Tellez came about, right? Before Rowdy Tellez was traded over to the Brewers, and the name is a New York Yankees first baseman / DH of Luke Voit, right? This guy led the league in home runs in the shortened 2020 season. This is a guy that, he's okay at first base, but this is when they really needed a first baseman, when Keston Hiura was really struggling. Obviously, before Rowdy Tellez was traded over to the Brewers, Luke Voit was mentioned. And the reason why I think there was perhaps a trade market for him between these two teams was the fact that I heard, again, MLB trade rumors reported that Lorenzo Cain was connected back to the Yankees because Jordan Hicks was always hurt playing center field out there. My take on this deal, I personally would like to see Rowdy Tellez get everyday at bats against both lefties and righties. I really believe in Rowdy Tellez. Would Luke Voit impact the offense and provide a bunch of home runs and a bunch of ability to drive the ball out of the ballpark? Absolutely. I just don't see a great fit in terms of, unless there's a DH, I don't see which there might be. I don't see a great fit over at first base. I love Rowdy Tellez. I've been pounding the table for Rowdy Tellez to get every day at bats ever since he was acquired, and he really performed. And he performed in the playoffs. He performed at big moments in the season. So I'm not a big fan of this name. However, I do think it could be impactful for the lineup if there would be a DH, and we very, very well could see a DH. So, Dom, what do you think about the name of Luke Voit?
I mean, cool. It's
Yeah,
like you said, it was just a report. It was Joel Sherman at the New York Post. I'm with you. I think Rowdy was the right call in the long run. They are at times very left-handed, so which is why Luke is appealing. He had an amazing 2020, but hey, it's 60 games. You can't judge an entire career off 60 games, and we had to judge an entire season off 60 games. So, it's just a name. It made sense in the moment, but I don't see it making sense moving forward, given the way it currently shakes out and the way that the roster is currently constructed. I wouldn't be shocked given, how much the Brewers love the Platoon, but I just don't think there's a reason to force a deal like that for Luke Voit.
Good call. I agree.
Could be wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. Usually we're not wrong, though. Our opinions are usually right.
Very wrong a lot of the time.
All right. Well, hey, look, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Brewers. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Brewers. You can follow me at Vinny Rottino, and you can follow Dom at Dom_Catronio. And also make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Brewers podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and we will talk to you next time.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.